In 1946, Father Lorenzo Spirale and a group of visionary Augustinian priests established in Havana the Universidad de Santo Tomás de Villanueva. Curiously, it was not a university the Augustinian order had in mind to open, but a grade school. The pivot to a Catholic university came at the request of the people of Cuba, who understood the importance of higher learning based on the teaching and traditions of the Catholic faith. They understood the value of a private education where the pursuit of truth would be unimpeded, knowing that God is always at the center. The university flourished and went on to successfully educate a generation of Cubans. In the late 1950s, Cuba's communist revolution began appropriating private property and pursuing and silencing all voices opposing the totalitarian government. This included schools, churches, and people of faith. In April of 1961, Fidel Castro and his militia forcibly entered the campus of Santo Tomás de Villanueva and placed the faculty and staff under arrest. The communist government appropriated the grounds and effectively closed the university. In the weeks that followed, most of the faculty and staff, and indeed many of the students, made their way to freedom in the United States. In Miami, Florida, they joined the thousands of Cuban exiles who had already begun to transform the city into the vibrant and influential metropolis it would eventually become. Undaunted, Father Spirale was joined by Father McCarthy, Father Donnellan, and Father Sullivan, and the group were charged by Bishop Coleman Carroll with the establishment of a Catholic college for men.
The Augustinians had been kicked out of Cuba by Fidel Castro, and they arrived here in Miami, and the Archbishop asked them to set up a college for boys. He already had one for women, Barry College, and he wanted one for young men. And so we did that in 1962. We set up this university, Biscayne College, as it was called at the time.
With Father McCarthy as its first president, Biscayne College opened its doors in September of 1962, staffing many positions with the talent pool of Cuban exiles who had operated and taught in Havana. The archdiocesan property that became Biscayne College's location was not the beautiful campus we are blessed with today. Expansive dumps of sand, garbage, and even horse stalls littered the property. One of Biscayne College's most beloved early professors, Richard Raleigh, remembers.
Because when I came down, there was no fence of any kind around the property, and it was littered with abandoned cars. It even had 2 or 3 stalls for horses. People in the neighborhood kept their horses on the property. And so it was not very attractive. But we had all this wonderful land, but once you've got a few hundred feet back, it was just littered with garbage and old cars and things.
Rising from the chaos, a newly constructed Mary Kennedy Hall housed all the classrooms, science labs, a library, a chapel, and administrative offices. Although many hold the name Kennedy Hall near and dear to their hearts, Mary Kennedy was but the pen name for Miss McCahill. Miss McCahill's generous early investment in our campus community set the tone for generations of philanthropists who would later support the college and its students financially. Still today the heart of Biscayne College, in 1962, Kennedy Hall was visually striking and inspiring to all who first saw it.
And believe me, Kennedy Hall, in those first few years looked quite a bit different than the original photographs of the building. It looks like something out of a science fiction movie, very modern. I thought, wow, wouldn't that be exciting to teach there?
Although Professor Raleigh and the rest of the faculty were ready to begin instruction, the newly arrived students had to be housed at the Kimberly Hotel on Miami Beach, as dormitories had not yet been completed. That first class of young men was bused every morning from Miami Beach to campus and back in the evening.
Well, back then, I don't even know if we would have used the word campus because the dorms were on Miami Beach. And the campus was really Mary Kennedy Hall for all intents and purposes. And I think we had 2 dorms and a cafeteria and all that land.
The campus and student body grew, but remained isolated, as in the early 1960s, Biscayne College was located on the outskirts of town.
Without a car, in the first 2 years, I didn't have a car. So it was a lot of spent being creative on campus. As we journeyed out, we rented buses, the social life. We had to create our own social life, and there were outrageous times with that social life. There were times when we would go down. There was a party boat down in Biscayne Bay that we would take over, and when the Bobcats showed up, all hell broke loose. It was a rip-roaring time.
The parties were fueled by the infectious music of the 1960s. For those Bobcats that were there, it sounded something like this. The 1970s music landscape expanded to include funk, punk, hard rock, and disco. In 1972, the Title IX Education Act was approved to prevent discrimination based on sex for educational institutions receiving federal funds. As to punctuate the moment, in 1973, Billie Jean King defeated Bobby Riggs in the much-heralded tennis battle of the sexes. At Biscayne College, the Miami Dolphins had taken up residence, utilizing fields and facilities to train the Don Shula-led franchise. Local Doll fans routinely attended practice, and many young fans remember hanging on the fence, watching their heroes working on drills and inter-squad scrimmages. 50 years ago, while housed and trained at Biscayne College, the Miami Dolphins executed the perfect season, a sports feat that has not been equaled since. That same year, Biscayne College launched its much-heralded sports administration program, which has yielded a bounty of high-level management positions across all the major sports leagues around the world. Today, we are proud to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the perfect season and the 50th anniversary of the SPOAD program. By 1973, Biscayne College was ready for a seismic shift.
Well, we always had women on campus. Even in the first year I was here, 66, we had a bus that went back and forth, kind of a shuttle, between Berry College, which was all women, and Biscayne College, which was all men. And our men could go over to Berry and use their library. If they wanted to, they could go over there and take classes. And the same token, the women from Berry could come here and take classes. So there were always a few women, very, somewhat rare, but usually in every class there might be 2 or 3 brave souls from Berry who came over and decided to sample what it was like to go to a men's college. But yes, then I suppose in the early 70s, all of these colleges started going co-ed. When it became a co-ed campus where there were women in greater and greater numbers, you could see this. The men were starting to dress better and better. I think that there may be a connection there.
Young women flocked to Biscayne College and brought with them a sense of elegance and fashion, sporting wrap dresses designed by Diane von Furstenberg and injecting new themes and ideas into all classroom discussions. The ladies also formed Biscayne College's first cheer squad, the Bob Kittens. The cheer squad was present at Bobcat basketball games and cheered on Bobcat baseball. Tennis and golf were competitive, and an intramural football program was going strong. Soccer and cross-country took advantage of the available training space and wonderful South Florida weather to establish winning traditions for both sports. In the classroom, Bobcats were excelling as well, concentrating on the liberal arts skills that would form the basis for standout careers.
That has always been the center, yeah. Because we were a liberal arts college, and what we wanted to do was to give everybody, all the students, kind of a well-rounded education. And so that's really centered in the humanities is kind of centered in Biscayne College. So that was always kind of at the center of our undertaking here.
The dream of the Augustinian founders continued to grow from the 1970s into the early 1980s, and Professor Raleigh attempted to capture some of the on-campus activities for posterity.
And I didn't see many cameras around here, many movie cameras in those years, maybe graduation. And usually our graduations weren't on campus as we got larger. But I used to go around and take movies, Super 8 movies of sports and things going on campus. And then of course when we have video cameras that became very common, but I loved showing those old movies to the students. But by then they were not wearing coats and ties.
While the dress on campus had certainly relaxed from the required early 60s suits and ties, the 1980s brought in the influence of workout-inspired leisure wear for the ladies, with MTV icon influencers like Madonna paving the way for a wave of colorful and inventive self-expression. Not to be outdone, men's fashion in the 80s was heavily influenced by TV shows like Miami Vice and the sporty casual looks of Ralph Lauren and Lacoste. 1984 proved to be a momentous year in the history of Biscayne College, as it was then that we became St. Thomas University, commemorating our counterpart in Havana and paying tribute to the faith and courage of the men and women who vowed to continue their drive towards a quality Catholic education in the United States. That year, St. Thomas University launched several graduate-level programs and inaugurated our celebrated College of Law. Although our name had changed, Biscayne College remained at the center of St. Thomas University, and the liberal arts taught therein continue to be the heartbeat of STU. 84 also saw the building of the university's library, a learning hub that remains a gathering place for students and faculty. The library also houses the Archdiocese of Miami Museum, which stores and curates historical art and artifacts that communicate the story of Catholicism in South Florida. In 1988, St. Thomas University's sponsorship by the Augustinian Order ended, and STU became the only archdiocesan university in Florida. Then Archbishop Edward McCarthy declared the partnership a new chapter in the university's history and a new stage in its pursuit of greatness. Members of the Augustinian Order, like Father Mack, remained as faculty for years to follow and resided in the Augustinian monastery nestled in STU's North Woods. In Miami, hip-hop was steadily growing, but a dance music genre dubbed freestyle ruled the decade. This Latin-infused, groove-heavy music even cracked the top 40 charts, with Miami-based artists such as Exposé and Debbie Deb. As the 80s gave way to the 1990s, St. Thomas University continued to expand its graduate programs with business, sports administration, education, and counseling as the standouts. The 90s were a decade of rebirth for STU, and in 1994, Reverend Monsignor Franklin M. Casale was welcomed as president of the university. Monsignor Casale's interest in ecology and sustainability was instantly impactful on the St. Thomas campus. Flowers, trees, native landscaping, and overall property beautification made the campus visually vibrant and welcoming to a new generation of incoming students. Still reeling from the effects of Hurricane Andrew on South Florida, these new students displayed a newfound resilience and drive to elevate themselves and the university. Campus life was highlighted by the annual Battle of the Halls and the perennial favorite, the Land and Water Olympics. Student body diversity was at an all-time high, and international students had discovered Miami Gardens' best-kept secret. Students from Australia, Italy, Canada, Switzerland, Brazil, Turkey, Germany, Japan, and beyond rounded out the student population, making St. Thomas University a truly international higher learning experience. They brought with them the sounds of Europop, and this in turn fueled the boy band craze of the 90s, led by the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. Fashion on campus was as diverse as the student body, with individuality in dress becoming more prevalent through the decade. students sported everything from heavy metal grunge to supermodel glam, while hip-hop culture continued to influence everything from high-top shoes to Kangol hats. In the 1990s, the university communicated our Catholic identity to the world with a published Catholic identity statement, emphasizing the importance of Christian values, especially that of service to humanity and the Church. At the time, STU was one of only a handful of faith-based institutions to publicly share such a document. St. Thomas University prepared to close the 20th century and charge into the future with renewed spirit and vigor. Throughout the campus, a feeling of rebirth was afoot, and the decades upcoming would not disappoint. The bells heralding the new millennium rang powerfully for St. Thomas University. Monsignor Casale's leadership inspired a new era of expansion, starting with the dedication of a new main entrance to the campus on 37th Avenue. In 2004, thanks to the generosity of the Amaturo family, the STU campus was blessed by the opening of the Chapel of St. Anthony. Archbishop Wensky has referred to the chapel as a prayer made in brick and mortar. Through the years, the chapel has hosted daily mass, baptisms, weddings, memorials, and special events, all highlighting STU's commitment to our Catholic identity. In 2008, the Carnival Cruise Line Science and Technology Building was dedicated, adding a vital space for the sciences, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Today, the building is also a learning center for the students in STU's nursing program. Our STEM building was shortly followed by the opening of the Fernandez Center for Leadership and Wellness, which not only hosts indoor sports such as Bobcat basketball and volleyball, but also serves as a working laboratory for our sports administration students and hosts commencement ceremonies, galas, and our famous yearly Stone Crab dinners. The energy of the 2000s inspired our students. Their work spread throughout our community as they participated with various organizations working to improve Miami Gardens. Students partnered with local middle school educators, youth counselors, law enforcement, and archdiocesan groups to do their part in bettering South Florida. Their work even reached internationally, as a relationship with Haitian coffee growers yielded their co-op coffee product being sold in local coffee shops. Bobcat sports sprouted their wings in the 2000s, with baseball, soccer, softball, and men's and women's basketball all winning regional tournaments. Beach volleyball was welcomed as the newest competitive sport, and the student population buzzed with excitement at home games in our newest facilities. The entire city of Miami lit up for the Miami Heat's first championship in 2006, an extra special event for STU, since many of our alumni, including the franchise's now Senior Vice President of Basketball Operations and General Manager, Andy Ellisberg, worked at the elite organization. The 2000s also saw Art Basel land in South Florida, and the influx of arts influenced the rise of the Wynwood section of Miami. New construction in downtown Miami and the Brickell area began in earnest, and a new crop of high-rises drew in new businesses and permanent residents from all over the world. Into the 2010s, STU students represented over 70 countries. Campus was abuzz with activity, and Bobcat sports continued to excel. The university celebrated its 50th anniversary with a grand gala that hosted VIPs and alumni from across the decades. Mary Kennedy Hall was rechristened Mimi Dooner Hall. A new wing was added to the College of Law, and stadium upgrades were finalized for Bobcat baseball. Social media had established itself as a dominant form of communication for our students. Anticipating a need, cybersecurity and big data degrees were added to STU's program catalog. In 2017, after 24 years of dedicated and fruitful service, Monsignor Casale announced his upcoming retirement. Monsignor's legacy can be measured in the over 17,000 graduates during his tenure, his vision and leadership, and his focus on making St. Thomas University a positive force in higher education, producing ethical leaders for our global community. St. Thomas University will always be thankful for Monsignor Casale's insurmountable spirit, and he will continue to be honored as President Emeritus. In May 2018, David A. Armstrong, J.D., was named the 10th president of St. Thomas University. President Armstrong, living up to his reputation as the turnaround guy in higher education, immediately went to work with the stated vision of making St. Thomas University the great Catholic University of the South. He hit the ground running with the announcement of a new Bobcat football team and marching band. He resumed construction operations for the Gus Machado College of Business. He introduced a new 5-year strategic plan, Limitless. And after just 1 year with Armstrong serving as president, STU had a historic undergraduate enrollment class in 2019. The enthusiasm and momentum generated in President Armstrong's first year was threatened by the COVID pandemic. However, standing on science and the diligent work of St. Thomas University faculty, staff, and students, the university was able to navigate through troubled times without stumbling. By the summer of 2020, STU had pivoted to delivering classes in a dual modality, both in person and online. Strict contact tracing kept our community safe, and our students were gifted the full collegiate experience. Student activities and in-person classes continued, and by 2021, the worst seemed behind us. The Gus Machado College of Business was dedicated in September of 2020 and has since hosted classes, symposiums, commencement celebrations, and an unforgettable culinary and fashion event. A titan of industry in South Florida, Mr. Machado passed away in May of 2022, but his entrepreneurial spirit lives along with his name in STU's most beautiful building and the students that inhabit it daily. STU partnered with AutoNation to install a new competition turf field on our campus, along with a digital scoreboard capable of displaying scores, replays, presentations, and even Hollywood movies. In the fall of 2021, the new hall was dedicated, St. Thomas University's newest housing facility, with room for over 300 students. The stylish modern building was finished just in time, as in 2022, STU hosts more than 800 students living on campus. Adjacent to the new hall, the new Student Center opened in October of 2022, housing a new dining hall, Rathskeller bar, outdoor seating, performance space, and offices for student life. President Armstrong's leadership and guidance continues to inspire the entire university to reach for greatness. In the last 4 years, STU has enrolled 4 consecutive record-breaking undergraduate classes. In 2022, we had the largest graduating class in our 60 years of history. The campus has grown with over 400,000 square feet of new construction. Bobcat Athletics has added 12 new sports, bringing the total number of programs to 28. Gifts to STU without donor restrictions are at a historic high, and employee giving to our annual fund is at 93%. Our College of Business has added a fashion merchandising program and culinary and hospitality management program. We have launched a music department which includes choir and musical theater. The Amaturo Family School of Theology has launched fully online graduate programs in theology. Swimming gave us our first individual national champion. And STU's College of Law launched the Benjamin L. Crump Center for Social Justice with a $1 million gift from Truist. In only the first 2 years of this decade, STU is already on the path to continued success. As we celebrate our 60th anniversary, we look forward to the next 60 years and all the possibilities available for our students, our alumni, and our St. Thomas University.